at a family gathering and suddenly someone announces they want everyone to share their biggest achievement from the past year. Your stomach drops, your mind goes blank, every fiber of your being screams, "Please skip me." If that scenario made you uncomfortable, here's what you need to know. Your discomfort isn't a character flaw. It's rooted in genuine psychological mechanisms, and understanding them changes everything. Today, we're uncovering why some people recoil from attention, what's happening in your brain during these moments, and how to navigate a world obsessed with visibility. Let's start with something that might surprise you. Hating the center of attention isn't one thing. It's several different psychological phenomena that look identical from the outside, but feel completely different on the inside. 3 people declined to give a presentation at work. Same behavior, right? But person A is an introvert who genuinely prefers working alone and feels no distress. Person B has social anxiety and spends the next week replaying the conversation, convinced everyone thinks they're incompetent. Person C actually loves public speaking, but is strategically overloaded. This distinction between preference and pathology is crucial. Preference means choice and self-knowledge. Pathology means the fear is so disproportionate, it's limiting your life in ways you don't want. Introversion is about how much external stimulation you prefer. Introverts aren't necessarily afraid of attention, they just find too much of it draining. Shyness is more situational, and social anxiety disorder is where the fear of negative evaluation becomes persistent enough to interfere with daily functioning. Now, here's the kicker. These can combine. An introvert might also have social anxiety. Someone confident might still be shy in certain contexts. The human psyche doesn't fit into neat boxes. Now, the fascinating part, the spotlight effect. This is your brain's tendency to massively overestimate how much others are paying attention to you. That visible pimple you obsessed over in 7th grade, you thought everyone was staring. They weren't. For people sensitive to attention, this effect is cranked to maximum. A small stumble over words doesn't just feel embarrassing, it feels like a cardinal sin everyone will remember forever. You leave the room certain you're now the person who messed up, when in reality, most people are already thinking about lunch. Here's where it gets worse. When you're anxious about attention, your brain develops what psychologists call attentional bias. You selectively interpret ambiguous social cues as negative. Someone yawns during your story, they must be bored by you specifically. Someone looks at their phone, they're texting about how awkward you are. And your memory joins in. You remember the one person who looked confused far more vividly than the 10 people who nodded along. Think about the last time you did something socially visible. What moment do you remember? I'm willing to bet it's not when everything went smoothly, it's the moment something felt off, even if that moment was completely invisible to everyone else. Meanwhile, your brain treats social attention like actual danger. Your amygdala, the threat detection center, lights up. Your heart races, palms sweat, muscles tense. Studies show people with social anxiety have heightened amygdala reactivity to social stimuli. You're not being irrational, your brain's threat system is just more sensitive. You're working with different hardware. Here's something that might change how you see yourself. Some of this started before you could talk. Psychologist Jerome Kagan studied babies and found that about 20% showed behavioral inhibition. They startled easily, cried more, and pulled back from novelty. When he followed these children for years, many grew into cautious, socially retentive adults. This was temperament, a biological predisposition to respond to novelty with withdrawal rather than approach. But temperament isn't destiny. A child with this wiring who grows up with patient, supportive parents often develops coping skills and confidence. That same child in an environment with harsh criticism, bullying, or punishment for self-expression, that's when temperament can crystallize into lasting social anxiety. If you grew up learning that standing out invited ridicule, of course you learned to make yourself small. That was adoptive in that environment. The challenge now is recognizing when that old adaptation no longer serves you. And culture matters enormously. Many East Asian societies prize modesty and social harmony. Standing out can be seen as selfish. But contemporary Western culture, especially in America, has developed what Susan Cain called the extrovert ideal. Visibility equals value. Modern workplaces reward gregarious behavior. Performance reviews value executive presence. Schools praise the first hand raised. If you do your best thinking alone, contribute thoughtfully in writing, or lead by listening, these cultural norms can make you feel like you're failing. But you're not.
You're just living in a culture that decided to value one mode of being over another. So how does this show up in real life? You might decline a promotion that requires presentations. You choose professions like writing or programming, where you can excel without constant visibility. You ghost on large gatherings or always volunteer to be the photographer, a role that keeps you outside the main action. You deflect compliments automatically. Someone praises your work and you immediately say, "Oh, it was nothing," or "the team did most of it." Here's what gets missed. This doesn't mean you're passive or ambitious. Many people who avoid the spotlight are incredibly driven. They just channel it differently. They become the person everyone relies on for thoughtful analysis. They're the friend who notices when someone seems off and checks in quietly. They're masters of their craft because they spent hours practicing alone. Virginia Woolf, Charles Darwin, Steve Wozniak, all reportedly uncomfortable with personal attention, all extraordinary in their contributions. But let's be honest about the costs. Performance evaluations that reward visibility put you at a disadvantage. Networking cultures that equate social comfort with competence can pass you over. The social media economy makes you feel like you're losing a game everyone else is winning. So what do? If your anxiety is causing genuine distress, cognitive behavioral therapy with exposure techniques works. The approach is gradual. You start with small exposures to social evaluation, learn that your feared outcomes don't materialize, and your brain slowly recalibrates. You don't go from avoiding eye contact to giving a TED Talk. You might start with speaking up once in a small meeting, and then maybe leading a team discussion. Practical strategies. If you have to present, rehearse until the content is automatic. Use structure, agendas, written input options, turn-taking protocols. Many people who hate spontaneous attention are fine with prepared performance because it removes social unpredictability. And here's one of the most powerful interventions: simply learning about the spotlight effect. When you understand that people notice you far less than you think, it takes pressure off. That mistake you're still thinking about from 3 weeks ago, most people forgot it before they left the room. But society can adapt too. Meetings can include written prep time. Leadership pipelines can recognize different strengths. Performance evaluations can value deep work and thoughtful contribution, not just charisma. Here's what matters. Disliking the center of attention is not a character defect. It's a human variation with roots in your biology, your experiences, and the culture you live in. If you recoil from the spotlight, you don't need to transform into an extrovert. You need tools for moments when attention is unavoidable, and you need to build a life that lets you contribute authentically. Your observational skills, your capacity for deep focus, your tendency to think before you speak. These aren't consolation prizes, they're genuine strengths. The world needs both kinds of people, those who step into the spotlight and those who work brilliantly in the wings. The challenge is creating space for different ways of being seen, or choosing not to be seen. So the next time you feel that instinct to shrink back, remember, your discomfort has a reason. It's not proof something is wrong with you, it's information about how you're wired and what you've learned. And with that information, you get to decide when to step forward, when to step back, and when to build a life where the spotlight is an invitation rather than a trap. So, what's your relationship with attention? Drop a comment below, and if this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it.